Kaaba.
Muhammad would do this very same thing in Medina. He took for himself an assembly house which led to the mosque, where all Islamic affairs were decided, and like Qusayy, Muhammad took upon himself the honor of handing out war banners before each of the 75 terrorist raids he orchestrated.
When they were about to fight another tribe, banners were tied only in his house, where one of his own sons would hand them out.
Ishaq knew the troubling ramifications of what he had just revealed. If this were true, it meant that a heathen had founded the religious scam Muhammad shaped into Islam. He recognized, as you and I do, that Muhammad's reliance on biblical characters to legitimize Islamic rituals and pillars was as feeble as it was preposterous. The 10 tests of Abraham were perverse philosophically, the fables of Nimrod were lunacy historically, and the pure descent from Ishmael was grossly improbable genealogy. With the Jewish connection in rubble, the hadith portrayal of Qusayy obliterated Arab and Meccan credibility. As such, Ishaq sought out an ally to corroborate his account, choosing the second caliph.
Ishaq. Umar confirmed the story of Qusayy and how he gained control over the Kaaba and the affairs of Mecca.
The hadith is incriminating, unraveling the fabric of Islam. More than 100 years before the first Quranic revelation fell from Muhammad's lips, the pillars of Islam had been established by a pagan entrepreneur. The Kaaba was the center of a new idolatrous religion, a scam designed to enrich its lone, undisputed, and unchallenged king, a man who used religion for political and personal gain. With methods identical to Muhammad's, Qusayy took control through jihad and political covenants. He was purported to have nobility and superiority as he established religious doctrine. He was a messenger to be obeyed. The prostration had been established, as had the place of worship, the mosque. The Hajj, down to the last minute rite, had been enshrined in religious lore. There was even a holy month. All that was needed now was for a religious tax to be implemented, and for Allah to be promoted from among the quarry of rock gods, for the pillars of Islam to be complete. If these final ingredients manifest themselves before we leave the 5th century, Islam will be laid bare, naked to the world of reason, exposed as the scam of Qusayy, not the religion of Abraham, and most certainly not the revelation of Allah. Before we search the annals of Islamic history for the final 2 pillars, let's ponder the perplexing place their scriptures have taken us. There's no chance these pagan doctrines could have been derived from Abraham. There's no way to pass these rites across the 24 centuries that separate the real Islamic patriarch, Qusayy, from the patriarch of the Jews. There are no writings, no carvings, no scrolls, no scriptures, no recorded histories, and no archaeology. There isn't even a hint of Mecca existing during this awesome void of time, and thus there aren't any people through whom these religious duties could have been conveyed. As such, the pillars were established upon the rocky ground of a pagan religious scam. You are witnessing the birth of Islam. Muslims say it isn't so, that it can't be so, because if it were, their religion would be nothing more than regurgitated paganism, a twisted plot. They claim Abraham came to Mecca to build the Kaaba and establish Islamic rites, but they omit how he could have survived the desert crossing with a maid and an infant. They don't even say why he would have left the Promised Land for a deserted valley in the middle of nowhere. Islam isn't the religion of Abraham or the doctrine of the Prophet Muhammad. It is the religion of Qusayy. The rites and rituals, regulations and taxes described in the rest of this chapter will be familiar to Muslims reading these words. They practice all of them today. So that they might know how they came to be hoodwinked into performing such mindless rites and to parting with their wealth and lives, I want to share how the pagan Qusayy developed his religion, the scam that became Islam. Having taken what didn't belong to him, Islam's founder, the patriarch Qusayy, was now in business, the only viable business in the fledgling burg of Mecca. A man of politics, he became the prototype of what was to come. The largest structure in town, the meeting hall, served as his home and seat of power, as it would for Muhammad. Qusayy connected it to the source of wealth, the Kaaba. He established great prostration prayer services at the mosque and a plethora of religious rituals. the most disturbing and enduring, was a butt-up sort of thing, whereby the moon god was mooned. Tabari, like Ishak, wanted his readers to know that he was not responsible for making up a story so damning to Islam. In the midst of his commentary, he inserted a hadith similar to Ishak's. It's attributed to
Kahab, the author of Al-Maksura. He said, "I heard a man telling Umar bin al-Khattab, when he was caliph, this story of Qusayy, and how he gathered his own tribe together, expelled tribes from Mecca, and gained control of the Kaaba. Umar did not reject it or disavow it."
That said, the hadith explains how Islamic ritual was actually established 5 generations before the Quran or Muhammad.
Ishaq, the pilgrims gathered in Mecca, went out to the Maqif, completed the Hajj, and went to Mina. Nothing now remained of the ritual of the pilgrimage but the ceremony of dispersal from Mina.
The Maqif is the plain of Arafat, about 10 miles east of Mecca. Standing there between midday and sunset is an important part of the Islamic Hajj. This is followed by the Ifadah, or dispersal.
On the day of the dispersal, they went to the stone of Jimar, and a man of Sufa used to throw pebbles for the pilgrims, none throwing until he had thrown.
This idolatrous rite would also have Islamic overtones. Muhammad, borrowing from his pagan past, instructed Muslims to observe the Jimar. Pebbles are thrown at 3 erections or heaps of stones. They are held to represent the devil. Soon we will find another Qusayy invention that Muhammad copied.
Tabari. Qusayy instituted the lighting of the fire at Al-Muzdalifah when the Wukuf took place, so that those being driven away from Arafat could see it. This fire continued to be lit in its place throughout the Jahiliyyah. This fire was also lit in the time of the Messenger, and of Abu Bakr, Umar, and Uthman.
Al-Muzdalifah is between Arafat and Mina. Standing there is one of the Islamic Hajj rites, as is the fire. Bakr, Umar, and Uthman are the first 3 Islamic caliphs after Muhammad. Qusayy's ability to get the Meccans to perform these pagan rites served Muhammad magnificently. By the Prophet's day they were so ingrained among the Quraysh that the Quran simply assumed the continuance of the idolatrous ways without ever mentioning them. They became part of Islamic dogma by way of hadith such as these. This next tradition demonstrates how dependent Muhammad was on Qusayy for the development of Allah's religious doctrine.
Tabari. Qusayy's tribe held him in honor and high esteem. No one opposed his rule in any way. His commands were never disobeyed, and nothing he did was opposed. As regards the Hajj, he confirmed the right of Arabs to continue their previous customs. This is because he considered these to be a religious duty, which he should not change.
Qusayy established the cornerstone of Islamic rule, submit and obey. We shall hear these words reverberate throughout the Quran. Devotion is a duty, prayer is an obligation, and rituals are compulsory. Islam is devoid of choice. The hadith goes on to report,
Qusayy had a house built in Mecca, which was the house of the assembly in which the Quraysh used to decide their affairs.
Within days of Muhammad's arrival in Medina, we will see him order the construction of his house and assembly area. He will craft an agreement, making him the sole decision-maker over all affairs. All of this serves to prove that Islam was not the revelation of Allah to Muhammad, but instead the verbatim implementation of the religion of Qusayy. Moving from entrepreneur to capitalist, our model opportunist soon found himself promoting a series of economic fairs around the holy months. As godfather, he took a cut on each deal.
Ishaq. The Rifada was a tax which the Quraysh paid from their property to Qusayy at every festival.
It, like the Kaaba concession, was an exclusive franchise, a cartel of sorts. Muhammad would rename the tax the zakat, but it was no different. Islam had found its 4th pillar. Being the top dog in Kaabaville, however, was hardly worth bragging about. While Mecca's claim to fame was the rock shrine for rock gods, it was insignificant compared to Karnak, Athens, Delphi, Rome, or Ephesus. While Qusayy's scheme was inventive, it was a small-time affair. If it weren't for what Muhammad did with it, the religious scam of Qusayy wouldn't be worth the ink on this page. Acting as patriarch of his own Khan, Qusayy made certain that only his direct descendants would be eligible